Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. This is Ask Abhijit Monday night. Last week we missed it, but we are back again. And Abhijit is going to first talk about his impressions on Rahul Gandhi's ongoing trip in United Kingdom. So let's first welcome our guest of the evening, Abhijit Iyer-Mitra. Abhijit Mitra, Namaskar. How are you?
Vetri. Always
And a Vetri
feeling better.
A Vetri I'm sorry.
Somewhat better.
I'm sorry I cut you off. I didn't mean to. Vetrivel, Veeravel to you. And first, I've seen a series of tweets that you put out. These are clearly formed after some, evaluation of what you're seeing in terms of his interactions with the media. I'd like you to, give us a bit on what you think is the strategy of INC.
See, they don't have a strategy. What has happened is, I actually watched this interview for entertainment. I'd gone through my YouTube subscription list to see Jo Tha. Then I went to the home page and saw there was nothing particularly interesting. And I was, I'm recovering from a viral fever. So I was like, kuch to dekhne ko mil jaye. So I said, Acha, Rahul Gandhi is always entertainment. Let's watch this. When I watched it, I was gobsmacked. I was totally gobsmacked, which shows you the Congress has no strategy. Rahul is so full of himself, he gets carried away by himself. I don't think he realizes what kind of trouble he's gotten the Congress into now. I think this interview is the Pulwama of what Pulwama was to 2019. This is going to be to 2024. He's literally asked for a foreign intervention. Does he not know what foreign democratic interventions have done? In Syria, in Kosovo, he wants Serbian TV radio. Do you remember the TV and radio station of Serbia were bombed? He wants Mandi House bombed. He wants Times Now bombed. He wants Republic bombed. He wants what is done to Syria and Libya done. He wants Maidan Square and what was done to Ukraine by that horrible shrew Victoria Nuland. That's what he wants. I mean, how naive. And mind you, he says this after saying that Jaishankar hasn't understood the threat from China. He hasn't understood the threat from America and what Western democratic intervention means. A fellow as clueless as this will tell us that Jaishankar did not understand what the Chinese threat was. This boy, look, till about 24 hours back, if it had this program, I would have said, without watching the program, I would have said he's a joke. When I watched the program, I think he's crossed a very, very significant red line. And he's transitioned from being a joke into a clear and present danger. First of all, that entire Cambridge lecture was apparently hosted by this Pakistani called Kamal something. क्या था Kamal Munir. Okay, maybe a British citizen now, but Pakistani extraction, which is something, and he's worked with the Pakistani government. You absolutely can't be doing this kind of crap. Okay, second thing that he's done is in the Indian Journalists Association. He's literally said that democracy is going... See, it is his right to go wherever he wants and say democracy in India is dying, fascist government, genocide, all of that. The problem becomes when he calls for foreign intervention. It doesn't matter military or peaceful. When you take an oath on the Constitution, third schedule as a member of parliament, what do you say? I am going to uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India. He has violated his parliamentary oath. He is quite possibly committed treason. I refuse to believe that a fellow who thinks that he understands the threat from China does not understand what exactly Western democratic intervention means. Since when did we start going abroad and asking foreigners to interfere in our domestic politics? This fellow is now turned into a clear and present danger. He's a danger to India. He's a danger to the Congress party. And if the Congress party had any sense, they would remove him from all office. The problem is he's in love with his own voice. I think he sits and watches his own speeches and, plays. I think his ringtone is one of his own speeches. You know how Narcissus fell in love with his own, with his own shadow, looking at it in the water and went mad. He's fallen in love with it on his iPod, or he was wearing that Fitbit. I don't know if Fitbit plays music, but I think he just keeps holding it and listening to himself saying, kya intellect hu main, kya genius hu main, kya whatever. Sorry, he doesn't think in English or Hindi, he thinks in Italian. So, sono che bellezza intellettuale, etc., etc. And I'm finding it hard to even laugh. I don't know if people realize how disturbing it is that an Indian member of parliament, for the first time in history, goes abroad and asks for a bloody foreign intervention in this country. He's irrelevant, yes. He's a joke, yes. Nobody wanted to meet him. Not one foreign minister wanted to meet him during the G20 summit. So he very conveniently arranged to get out. But then, to go and do this. And did you see his presentation at JBS in Cambridge? He's saying, China values social harmony. That is his idea of India. He's a leftist after all. They want to suppress individual liberty for social harmony. This boy crossed a line. He's crossed a very serious line. And I really think it's high time the BJP stopped funding him.
Well, the BJP is not even acting on some of the records whereby he has himself signed documents saying that he is a British citizen. According to Indian Constitution, you cannot be a member of parliament if you happen to be holding citizenship of other countries. Why is the government not acting on this? Any idea, Abhijit?
Look, they clearly think that he's an asset. And let's be clear about this. I've said this on many occasions. BJP was a 120 to 140 seat party. Modi made it a 240 to 50 seat party. Rahul Gandhi made it a 303 party. But now I think it's seriously time that the BJP evaluates if those 53 odd seats that Rahul Gandhi has basically gifted to the BJP is worth this clown calling for a military intervention into India.
Well, that was his take on what happened. One thing that I also felt a little perturbed was one of a senior journalists was interviewing him, and he was asking a question saying that, I've interviewed your grandfather, your great grandfather, your mother, your grandmother, and your father, and they've all been always. They never diss India outside of India. He was asking, why are you doing it? And this guy just gets out of shape, bent out of shape.
When all the plaudits were coming, he's like, yeah, what did you think? He was very interested in engaging with the old man. The moment the question was asked, he suddenly turned. Did you see how the derision? I tweeted the video. Did you see the derision?
Yeah, I saw that.
There is no question. There is no question. There is no question. How is this fellow going to listen?
Well, the amazing thing about the BJP also, Abhijit, and I can't understand that, you can keep on ignoring doing your duty just because somebody in the opposition is your vote getter for you, that there is a duty towards the country. Somebody cannot have dual citizenship means somebody cannot have dual citizenship. Do you know how many people tell me that you are a US citizen, you have no right to talk about India? They conveniently forget that I'm also an OCI. I'm paying taxes in India. I have every right to criticize it, especially when my taxpayer rupees are being abused. So what I'm saying
And
is, you go ahead.
and remember, they also went after Akshay Kumar. He can't talk about India or do anything about India because he's a Canadian citizen. But what about Rahul's British citizenship?
Yes. So everyone seems to be having dual folk tongues, and you have to apply the law the same way to everybody. You can't just say for you this is the law and for him that is the law. It's not true. So anyway, we'll just go into questions now. Thank you so much, Abhijit, for weighing in on this matter. Let's take up some questions now. Kanda Batata wants to know, what is your take on Mercedes Benz E Class LWB? It has the best rear seats and no need to get an S Class anymore.
I would disagree on that. Look, first of all, I'm not a big fan of Mercedes suspension. Okay, I find the BMW suspension much better. But yes, the Mercedes rear seat, I can still tell you the S-Class has a much better recline, still better suspension because it's heavier and much more toys and things to 𝙒𝙧𝙤𝙪𝙥𝙥. I mean, if it's really the recline and the space you're looking for, then get an Ertiga. No, Ertiga or Innova will have same or even better. I can honestly tell you that the Ertiga and the Innova, the new Innova's reclining seats recline more than the Mercedes. So yeah.
Next one, please. Kanda again, which car did you planning to buy after selling your 5 Series?
XL6, which is the nice version of the Ertiga. Suzuki.
Next one, please. Mr. Lee wants to know, have you read the 2020 book 1 Billion Americans by Matthew Yglesias? What do you think of the premise, considering that the USA has abandoned natural resources and potential for renewables?
No, I have not read it, and I haven't thought about it. Sorry, Mr. Lee. I will read it. 1 second. Hold the question. I just want to take a photo.
Go back, please. Yeah, he wants to take a photo of that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll add that to my reading list.
Aditya wants to know, please suggest some books, folk tales, which I can read to a 3-year-old kid. Already through many Assamese folk tales, as we are Assamese. What else do you suggest from India and abroad? Panchatantra.
Sorry.
So easy.
Especially maybe the Amar Chitrakatha versions of the Panchatantra.
Yeah. So such delectable reads.
They're fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of Amar Chitrakatha books. Tales from Bengal, Jataka tales, Panchatantra, all of these in the Amar Chitrakatha line, which I think are fantastic for a 3-year-old kid.
Right. Hardik Chunky wants to know, did Anthony Blinken and Sergey Lavrov meet on the sidelines of the G20 meeting? That answer is yes. We don't know what they talked about. It was supposed to be for 45 minutes. Go ahead, Abhijit. You know more.
Yes, they did. No, I don't know more. Nobody talks about what they spoke about because it was one-on-one, unaccompanied. And yeah, they did speak.
Ishan Sharma wants to know, Abhijit, what's your take on Manish Sisodia's arrest? Do you still think AAP is suitable for Delhi? And with such nice comments
by
Raga...
Let's go one question at a time.
Yeah.
Manish Sisodia's arrest. Look, I don't like arresting people unless you have something to convict them. I don't see what a custodial interrogation achieves. If you're going to go on asking them the same questions over and over again, I just don't like it. You can keep telling them. You remember how Modi was grilled for almost 16, 17 hours a day when he used to keep getting called back by the SIT investigating the 2002 riots. I think that's the way, ask whatever you want. That's your prerogative as an investigating agency. But what is the point of arresting? Now, this one explanation I've heard is he destroyed evidence. Well, then charge him with destruction of evidence. Are you ready to proceed on prosecution over destruction of evidence? He destroyed evidence. बोल दिया, यार, you know he destroyed evidence. You have the evidence to prosecute. Then go after it. ठीक है ना? I don't think it's an entirely justified arrest. I don't understand what is the point they're trying to achieve. It does them no favors, huh? Because understand, what you do to somebody will be done to you later. Remember what Chidambaram tried to do to Amit Shah. Amit Shah paid back with interest to Chidambaram. Don't do this, boss. This, if by all means, convict people and send them to jail. But as a rule, I don't like this thing of arresting before custodial interrogation. I have issues with, unless you can prove that is a clear and present danger that he's in the act of destroying evidence, and unless he's arrested, he will destroy evidence. Second part of the question.
Do you still think
AAP is suitable for? Do you still think AAP is suitable for Delhi? And with such nice comments by Raga, will AAP be the new opposition? Look, I've said this before. I'll answer the second part of the second part first. God, how complex questions you ask there. But the new main opposition will be somebody who can breach the linguistic divide. Remember, technically, Delhi is South Punjab, southernmost South Punjab. Okay, Haryana, Himachal, Punjab were all one state once upon a time, and Delhi was carved kind of out of it. So I don't consider them to have breached the linguistic barrier yet. But yes, I do think AAP will get there maybe before TMC, because TMC chose badly. They've been wiped out in Tripura. They've been wiped out in Goa as well. But AAP did pretty well in Gujarat. I think when you're from the Hindi belt, you do have an advantage that you can break into a Hindi adjacent belt. Unlike Bengali, because Bengali is already Hindi adjacent, kind of. But ye hoga. So will they be the main opposition? I'm not too sure. Could they possibly overtake the Congress next time again? Even with Punjab and Delhi, I don't see them able to do that. I don't think they'll do that in Gujarat either. I think it'll take a while. I still think the TMC, because they've got a hold on a state with 40 seats, will first be the main opposition, and ultimately it may go on to the AAP, but not in the immediate term. And are they suitable for Delhi? Look, I don't know about the education part. I've heard lots of arguments to and fro. From personally what I've seen of AAP schools, they're not great. But I have to tell you this. Every time I've gone and asked the AAP walas for something, they do it. They do it. Or at least they try to do it. When we went and complained during the initial phase of vaccinations ki bhai appointment nahi mil raha hai, they tied up with Fortis and organized a vaccination mela at the local school where no sifarish, nothing required, gone and done. So at a civic level, I'm very happy with them. They don't extort. They've seen to it that certain security measures. My particular neighborhood saw about 17 cars stolen in 3 months. They've set up neighborhood patrols and things all of their own, and nothing's happening here. So, I have no issues with them in Delhi per se. I really don't. And Holi ki shubhkamnaएं आपको भी, बहुत सारा भांग पीना.
Vamsi wants to know, when do you think US will end its proxy war against Russia, and do you think Trump was in power, the war would have not happened?
Trump in many ways exacerbated this. He started the training and provision of ammunition of Ukraine. So this is something you have to consider. Look, I don't think it's a US proxy war, in that Ukraine does have the right to defend itself. But they will not end it. They will see to it. It's in the US interest. They don't care how many Ukrainians die, as long as it's weakening Russia.
Next question, please. Soham Majumdar wants to know, number one, how Bauhaus School of Art appeared and why Nazis criticized its modernist styles.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to go into the Wikipedia thing, but basically the thing was, there was a belief that new industrial techniques. See, when you make a chair, it's just straight lines. There's only so much you can do with wood. But when you start working with steel and things, I mean, even thrones and things like that were made of wood and then plated over with beaten gold or beaten silver and things like that. When you had new materials emerging, when you had new techniques emerging, you had new commodities arriving from different parts of the world, they found that, and it combined with Michelangelo, who believed that form over function in terms of art. So they did believe that form and function could also be fused, and it didn't have to be intricate. It didn't have to have flowers or animals engraved into a chair to make it beautiful and things like that. And in architecture, it opened up a whole new world. You go to things before Bauhaus, there's not much light coming in because the whole point of European architecture was to keep the cold out. Right. So when they found all these new techniques, they were like, why not celebrate lines for what they are? Why not celebrate metal for what it is? Why not celebrate cement for what it is? Etc., etc., etc. Now, with the Nazis, they had a huge issue with this modernity because Bauhaus emerged at a time that was synchronous with what the Germans believed was their age of humiliation and the eroding of moral values. So for them, they clumped all of it together. And mind you, the Soviets also did it. Soviet Russia was in fact one of the greatest pre-Soviet Russia, end Tsarist Russia, was one of the greatest expressions of Bauhaus style art and architecture, modern architecture and Bauhaus art and furniture and things like that. The problem was the Soviets also didn't like it. So by the time Stalin takes over, everything gets shut and he goes in for the Vysotniki, the Seven Sisters of Moscow, the big tall buildings. So there was a kind of reaction against both of these things, and it moved ultimately towards Soviet brutalism, which I find quite pretty, actually. It's much better than Le Corbusier brutalism, for example. But that was basically what it was and how the Nazis and the Soviets didn't like it. And I don't think it actually represented a socialist school of thought. I don't know why this point is made, but you actually look at Bauhaus, a lot of the discussions that they had to do with, definitely with democratizing things, that, form could be beautiful. And remember, that's also a Japanese belief, that clean lines and simple lines can be very beautiful. It developed independently in the West. That's a different matter. But it's fantastic. And why corporates and industries adopted it, well, that I really don't know.
Ashish Sharma wants to know, you always tell us not to boil dal, but please explain the process in detail. Also, please recommend YouTube channel of nutritious Indian, easy to cook food.
Oh, okay. Look, there's so many YouTube channels. Nutrition, the same channel that gives you nutritious food will also give you absolute crappy food. Right. But I always go for simple. I prefer simple stuff. Boiled dal, look, you can boil dal if you're in a hurry, but it should be no more than one whistle for tuar dal. What I always do with tuar dal is, if I'm going to cook it for lunch, I soak it at breakfast time. I soak it at about 7 in the morning. So by the time I cook it at about 7, 8, you can literally, when you lift a piece of tuar dal, you can break it in your hand. And then you just simmer it. Okay. Trust me, the taste is also much better. You just put a lot of hing in it, some salt, and crush one tomato and put it in there. It tastes fantastic, boss. You need nothing. You don't even need to put tadka in it for it to taste good if you've hinged it properly. So it's a very simple process. It's not that tough. And, it cooks in about 15 to 20 minutes if you've soaked it before. It's like rajma. Of course, rajma you do have to boil. But remember, rajma is not a dal. It is a legume. So usme wo bhi problem hai. But look, I follow lots of YouTube channels. I mean, I follow literally hundreds of, or almost all the channels I follow are either history channels or cooking channels. there's Sivakasi Samayal, Amma Samayal, lots of these Mailapur Mami Samayal, in Bong there's Tanhir Pakshala. There's just so many. Ultimately, it's like asking me when you say give me one YouTube channels. It's just a whole load of channels, boss. You figure out what suits you. You do you.
Simple Life wants to know, why is World War I downplayed while World War II is glorified more than normal? Was Andrew Jackson really a people's president, or is he the right about propping him up? Or is the right just about propping him up?
Look, I don't think World War I is downplayed at all. It's seen as a kind of, the roots of World War II lay in World War I. So it's just that, and World War II is probably more relevant. It changed more after it happened in terms of reshaping the world than World War I had. World War II was essentially a redo of World War I, except that Japan's changed sides. Right? So I don't think it's glorified. It's just you tend to remember your recent past more. It's the last real big war they had in Europe. So it's obvious that, and it's the last really big war that America fought. So it's normal that they would remember it a lot. And Andrew Jackson, I'm sorry, I really don't know my American presidents very well.
Viewers, there's a new Netflix series called All Quiet on the Western Front that talks about World War I. It has won a lot of awards already. And Netflix, whenever they do period film, they do very good justice to it. So do watch it. The book is, in fact, fantastic. It is considered
the book is much better.
Eric Maria
the book is
remarked,
much better.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the best
Fantastic
book on World War I. Yeah.
It's not the best book on World War One, but it's quite it's human drama, but it's a fantastic book.
Next question, please. GCKP. Abhijit, you once mentioned that the term South Asia was coined by Indian babudom. Can you please share some references for it? I tried to search, I couldn't find.
Okay, yeah, good idea. 1 second, let me take a image, a photo of this, and I will. Okay.
Next question, please. Ardit Thanki wants to know, can Rahul Gandhi and other VIP people asking for India to be sanctioned lead to such a scenario that there are rumblings in lower ranks of State Department? VIP term is sarcastic.
No, there really isn't. So, if you talk to US State Department people or British diplomats or German diplomats or French diplomats on the ground, they're like, boss, we don't see any of this that we read in the newspapers. They themselves don't take the New York Times and Washington Post all that seriously. Will you get the occasional idiot who does in the cultural section? Yeah. In the political section, you won't. Right. But the cultural section is anyway full of those kind of people, So in the political section, they're very hard-nosed. They go around, they don't see anything wrong or anything like that, which is why. Has Rahul Gandhi ever asked himself why America isn't talking about this? Why is Europe not talking about this? He thinks it's because of trade. It isn't. It's simply because they don't see a problem. Right? And it's not unusual for the government and the press to be diametrically opposite to each other. So, for example, throughout the Bangladesh war, when Kissinger and Nixon were hating on India, and even before that, India used to be the darling of the Western press. And we exploited it very well during the Bangladesh war, incidentally. So no, it isn't. The issue is that he asked for it at all. Because, the trigger for upholding India's sovereignty is not that somebody listens to your call to violate the sovereignty. It is your oath to uphold it. You can't go around making statements like that.
Next question, please. Mr. Lee wants to know, have you read Uniqueness of Western Civilization by R. Duchesne? I think. He attributes divergence between West rest to aristocratic chivalry and internal churn of Proto-Indo-Europeans. Your view?
I haven't read this again, so I need to read this clearly. And, you know, this aristocratic chivalry and internal churn theory, I've heard this aristocratic chivalry theory before. We also had domestic ideas of aristocratic chivalry. We had the Arabs had their own version of aristocratic chivalry and all of that. So that's bunkum. I'd really suggest in terms of why it's why the West is unique. You really need to read Why the West Rules for Now by Ian Morris. I think he makes a much more convincing case than this aristocratic chivalry and things like that. But I will read it if and when I get time. I'm still trying to finish Varun Gandhi's book. It's such a good book, but it's a really thick read. It's easy to read, but there's just so much data and ideas out there. You're constantly absorbing stuff because you're collating it with your own thought processes. It's a fantastic book, by the way.
Abhishek wants to know, according to you, has the definition of white-collar employees changed now that we have white-collar employees paid as less as 10,000 to 15,000 a month?
Look, I've been saying this for a long time. There is the nouveau white-collar who's kind of like a blue-collar who just sits in an air-conditioned desk. Okay, so that definition of white and blue collar has changed. And in fact, a blue collar laborer on the Gripen production line in Sweden gets paid more than most white collar laborers after doing a master's at an Ivy League university would.
Ashish Sharma wants to know, I saw Earthlit Festival video where you were a moderator. How do you control the urge to slap the shit out of leftists? What should we do in this situation to not harm ourselves mentally and professionally?
Well, look, I was moderating a session where Prakash Raj and Mayank Shekhar were up against Shefali and a lot of other people. When you're a moderator, it just comes naturally. And I don't think that they said anything. Remember, Prakash was very controlled on my panel. Mayank made a lot of sense and Prakash was very controlled. Prakash actually spoke a lot of sense if you heard him. Where he went slightly off was in interpreting that one girl's question right at the end on what to do about, I forget the question now, but he misinterpreted it. But we got him back online. We asked the girl what she meant and it was back. So remember, when you're a moderator, you have a duty to remove your ideological cap and allow the speakers to speak. Which is why I know everybody's going after that poor guy, Danish Khan from Indian Journalists Abroad Association, who interviewed Rahul Gandhi at that event at St. James Court. He did a wonderful job. He did exactly what Arnab Goswami did to Rahul Gandhi. He allowed Rahul Gandhi to hang by his own rope. I think that's the point of we tend to think that somehow being rude to the person you're interviewing or confrontative and combative is good interviewing. It is not. This is why Karan Thapar is one of the worst interviewers India has ever had. Right. His style has become a lot better since he joined The Wire, but he was insufferable before that. And that's not good journalism. The journalism, being a good moderator is not about you. You're just a prop. You need high fidelity from your panel, and you ensure that. So I find it very easy to slip into that role.
Ankit Podar wants to know, what are some good sources for the technical analysis on policy development in India in different sectors like road, power, telecom, aviation, etc.?
None. See, a good source is I just keep trawling and reading whatever I get. And once in a blue moon, it's very rare, I can tell you, one in maybe 20, 30 papers I read will show me or tell me something that I haven't heard or seen before. Okay, so there is nothing. You literally have to do the thing of going on, reading everything, even if it's rubbish. To get to that one gem, I have to read like 40, 50 absolute crap pieces of paper.
Ishan Sharma wants to know, with the NDA winning 3 northeastern states and such comments, nice comments by Raga, do you believe the NDA will win majority in the upcoming 2023-2024 state and federal elections? I believe 350 plus in the next Lok Sabha.
I think what they're, I think RaGa's really helped the BJP. I think 330 is a more realistic goal, but they might just edge past the 2/3 majority. Let's see what's going to happen. My big question mark is Bengal. The BJP are telling me that they have, because Mamata decimated them after the assembly election. She literally decimated the rank and file. I don't think it's recoverable so fast, but they're telling me that they are confident. Okay. Plus, India tends to vote differently in national elections and in state elections. Otherwise, Delhi won't be voting overwhelmingly for Kejriwal here, and vote exactly opposite in national elections, and don't give a single seat to AAP in Delhi. So 20 seats from Bengal. They already have 20. Are they going to lose some of those 20, or are they going to gain back more seats? I don't know. So Bengal is a big question mark. The Northeast is now the BJP's. In spite of slightly reduced numbers in Assam, I think they'll vote overwhelmingly for the Congress, for the BJP in the Lok Sabha. That's all the statistics on the ground that I've seen seem to suggest that. They are pushing really, Odisha they're not working on. What they are pushing for, and because Odisha is a very friendly government, they don't oppose this thing. They are pushing on Telangana. They are pushing on Bihar. Bihar is their big focus. They think they can get at least 15 to 20 seats away from what's his name? Nitish and Lalu and all these people. Yeah. So their thing is basically between 20 and 30 seats from that belt, and Maharashtra they will win big. Maharashtra they will absolutely win big. So I'm predicting 330 without Bengal. And if they manage to wrap up Bengal, they get to the 350 mark. Big if. So Bengal, I don't buy the BJP's confidence in Bengal. I personally don't, which is why I'm sticking to 330. Next.
Okay, GCKP wants to know, Abhijit, is Ram Guha's India After Gandhi a good book to read, start learning about post-British India? If not, some other suggestion.
Again, please don't ask me for one book. See, there's so many books you have to read. There's no one point of view, boss. Stop behaving like these people who want either only the Bible or only the Quran or only the Torah. We don't do that. Okay, that's why we don't have one single holy book. There's Bhagavad Gita, there's Ramayana, there's Itihasa, Ramayana and Mahabharata. There's the Puranas. There is, how many Puranas? 108 Puranas, something like that.
Yeah.
4 Vedas, etc., etc. There is no one book. There are just a whole load of books to read. One of them is that guy Patrick French. Ram Guha's book didn't teach me anything I didn't know. Another fantastic guy is Tripur Daman Singh. You should really read his books. He's probably one of the most outstanding historians of modern India that's emerged. Serious historian. There is Nalin Mehta's The New BJP, which will give you a bit of electoral history. There is Dom Moraes, I don't know if people even remember him now, biography of Indira Gandhi. So all of these are fantastic books to read. I mean, I've literally read about God knows how many hundreds of books. See, I don't remember books. I remember what they teach me.
Ishan Sharma wants to know, what's your take on the current tussle between Supreme Court and GOI and the recent judgment by the Supreme Court on the EC officials, ECI? Your take on, okay, one question at a time.
Look, first of all, I don't like what the Supreme Court has done, but to be fair to the Supreme Court, they've said there is no law to govern this, so you pass a law. This is what's going to happen till you pass the law. Okay. But I fundamentally believe it's unconstitutional because there is a law which governs how judges are elected, and they've thrown that aside. They've decided on a collegium which has absolutely no legal standing in this country. And I generally don't have a very high opinion of the CJI. I haven't had a high opinion of CJS of India ever, as far as I can remember.
Is GOI allowing a judicial coup? How will this end up?
Well, look, the process of ceding power to the judiciary has a long history. It's been happening for the last 30, 40 years in the coalition era. The surprising thing is that the Modi government, in spite of having an absolute majority, allows this sort of whittling away of legislative authority by the judiciary. Now, how will this end up depends on Amit Shah and Modi's mind. Are they going to do what happened in the farmers' protest, which is just turn tail and run, and it'll be declared master stroke and 10-dimensional chess? Or will they stand up and fight? If they fight, I think they've got a very good case.
Are northern Hindus more brainwashed to think that BJP is better for the country, or are Tamilians, Keralites Hindus more brainwashed who detest the BJP?
They don't detest the BJP. It's just that the BJP doesn't talk to them in an idiom that they understand. So, for example, it's not like I don't understand Urdu, but if you come and recite Shairi to me, I'm not really going to be very interested in Shairi. I don't like English poetry also. Like, I've never had time for poetry. I detest poetry. I think it's a very arcane, archaic art form that has no relevance in the modern day. But a lot of people don't. Right? So I don't think the BJP has penetrated the sort of mindset of the three other southern states. And in the north, I think it's slightly different. The BJP talks to them in a language that they understand. It's just that simple. It's not a question of brainwashing on either side.
Nishek Sharma wants to know, Ashwani Vaishnaw told in his recent presentation that railway station redevelopment is now planned with urban planner. What are your views about redevelopment of the same?
Well, if it's a private urban planner, he's obviously doing a very good job, because looking at some of the public urban planning, it's not very good. So wherever they've gone in for a serious professional architect, like the Vista, which Hardeep Puri planned with this Guju guy, what's his name? That was excellent. You know, they've actually conserved more trees doing it, and it looks stunning at the moment. I don't know why they've put up those god-awful barricades, because that destroys the view. But it truly is fantastic. From what I've seen of these new railway stations, they're actually really well planned, boss. But their planning is good. Their interiors are very good. I'm very surprised that government CPWD departments are able to execute good work like that. But there are the occasional one or two government buildings. If you're in Delhi, come out outside INA Market, and near the subway station entry on the Delhi Hat side, you'll find this fantastic prefab building. If you go in there, it's a superb building. It has noise insulation. It has sound insulation. It was built under cost, under time. Lovely work environment for the people sitting inside there. So, you know, sometimes when they use their brains, they actually do it very well. Contrast that with the new Nauroji Nagar, or whatever it's called, opposite it, next to INA Market, where the Barapula thing comes and joins up with AIIMS. Those are horribly planned. So it depends on the urban planner, but from what railway stations I've seen, I think the guy is fantastic. Maybe it's different people and some aren't fantastic, so I don't.
I have been traveling in the trains, and these days trains are quite nice. Last 3 4 years, whenever I get a chance, I do travel by train. It's convenient, and they're actually quite nice. They don't smell as bad as they used to. The stinkers
They don't
and the stations
smell,
are.
but look, they're still sort of made for Indians, I guess. Because you still have an Indian toilet, which is necessary because most people do toilet the Indian way. There is still the mug, which I find really disgusting. But then I don't know if a health faucet is also that hygienic in that particular environment, right? Uh, so I really don't know what that is. Like, I don't know how you come up with a democratized, equitable, free bum washing solution on public infrastructure. I think that's the big technological leap to be taken out there. But I really like the new trains that we're seeing.
Next question, please. Kapil Goenka wants to know, who do you think will contest from Amethi and Rae Bareli?
I think Priyanka will take over Rae Bareli. Amethi, maybe one of the Vadras, but they won't risk it anymore. I think they've given up on Amethi. I was talking to some ground workers there. They're saying the Congress infrastructure itself has just ceased to exist out there. They've just abandoned Amethi. And unless they give a important person to Rae Bareli, the Congress will dissolve out there, because you can't maintain a whole UP unit just for the sake of Rae Bareli, which is their only Lok Sabha seat from UP.
MMD wants to know, thank you, MMD. Is the left engineering a strategic retreat via exploiting Papu to ensure BJP makes 400 plus in 24 to solidify the Tanashah narrative and manufacture consent of the West to intervene in India?
No, I don't think that. No, I don't think so. It's a long shot. It's a बहुत long shot है. But whatever BJP has invested in Bharat Jodo Yatra, and Rahul Gandhi is paying back with dividends. I think Rahul Gandhi is a better investment for the BJP. They've gotten more. I'll tell you what, the return on investment that Rahul Gandhi provides to the BJP is more than the 2,000 crore return on investment that Rahul Gandhi made investing 50 lakhs in National Herald. And it is also more profitable than the 900 times valuation compared to earnings of the Adanis. This much I can tell you. If you had an asset to invest in or a liability to invest in, short selling, the definition of short selling is investing in Rahul Gandhi. Because the lower he goes, the more you gain. So if you want to know what short selling means, it's literally Rahul Gandhi.
Next question, please. Naman Kanpal. Thank you, Naman. Do you think Raga has multi-100 crore deal with BJP to say things he says just before elections? But where are additional seats coming from? With allies and saturation in Hindi belt, do you think they can cross 300 mark?
So the second part I've already answered in depth. And multi-100 crore deal to pata nahi, but apparently the BJP funded. I've heard this from way too many people for this to be a joke anymore, that the BJP funded the Bharat Jodo Yatra.
They don't need money anymore, do they? I mean, they have money like sorted for 7 generations.
The Congress? Yeah. No. They're desperately short of money. See, they have lots of personal money, but they're not willing to spend their personal money on the party. They're desperate for money. They're in dire straits.
I thought the formula was 1/3 of whatever goose they took. 1/3 went to the minister, 1/3 went to the party, 1/3 stayed with the family. I thought that was the formula.
No. That formula has long since been discarded. Ever since UPA 1 and 2, it's been jo main banata hu mere liye, jo election ke time pe last year what we make will all go to party funds, which went to party funds. They lost, but then year after year kuch bhi nahi mil raha hai party ko, to kya karenge?
Shadow Showdown wants to know. Thank you, Shadow. What do you think about prototypes of Tata's new EV Avinya? Do you think it will be world-class EV?
See, Tata still has that little bit to go, boss. Okay. They've perfected the safety game. All Tata stuff is 5. But to really capture the market, they need fuel efficiency, which is what Mahindra also has to work on. Mahindra or Tata ka fuel efficiency अच्छा नहीं है, and with EVs the big deal is resale value. Do I think it is a world-class EV based on the prototype? Is it comparable to world standards? Yes. But will the execution of it be the same as the demonstrator? That's the big question. But I thought it was very impressive. I'm waiting to see the execution, because remember, a lot of display models of these things shown at these auto shows are quite exaggerated in terms of what can be achieved.
Zubair wants to know, Abhijit, what's your view on the Tamil Nadu situation and why DMK plays divisive politics?
Because that is the DMK's mojo. Okay. Sure, the situation this time has been exaggerated, but why? There's no smoke without fire. And you go look, I've retweeted somebody who actually put that entire speech of Stalin literally saying during the election campaign, the assembly election campaign, that these people are sending North Indians here to change Tamil Nadu from a BJP into a BJP voting state. We won't allow that. Why did he say that? So they have been stoking up xenophobia, boss. They didn't realize it was going to boomerang on them so badly. And it has boomeranged.
And by the way, Zubair, these people know more Vastu Shastra, Rahu Kal, and Muhurtam times better than you and I. That is the point. Yeah. They are the hypocrites of the worst order, most God-fearing inside the house. In fact, swearing in ceremony of Udayanithi Stalin was done at the most propitious, appropriate time during a 1-week window where they wanted to do it. And they said this is the best time for him. 3 different astrologers were consulted. I can go on and on. They're all hypocrites.
And Karnadidi changed his black shawl to an orange shawl towards the end of his life, to a saffron shawl. Why did he do that? Yes. He gave up eating meat when his dog died. Do you know that?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
He had a little black Pomeranian, Spitz kind of dog, and when that very unimaginatively named Blackie apparently, and when Blackie died, he gave up eating non-veg. So they are very, very superstitious about these things, boss.
He used to drop his, he had a Angavastram, right? Every day he would step out from home. There was a Pillayar right in front of his house. So every day that Angavastram will drop, and in the pretext of picking it up, he'll do a namaskaram to the Pillayar and then go on to the secretariat wherever he was going out. It's interesting people. That's all I can say. Naman Kandapai wants to know, are Russia going to stop after Bakhmut, or are we going to see more horrible fighting in the summer?
There's going to be terrible, terrible fighting, boss. Like I said, 2 से 4 साल लगने वाले हैं.
Next question, please. RM, thank you, RM. Who's killing anti-India jihadis in Pakistan?
Allah, the most merciful and compassionate.
It is very
serious. It is very serious. Look, there's several explanations. If you're a very patriotic, jingoistic Indian, you'll say Ra is doing it, as they say. If you are a realist, you'd say that, remember, terrorists aren't nice people. They're not nice people where they live. There's usually a very high fratricide rate amongst terrorists themselves without a foreign country even getting involved. I think what's basically happened is that because a lot of this is based on extortion and things like that, financial cycle and loans and things, with the currency crisis, payments are not being made, etc., and therefore the killing is happening. I think it's quite organic to the criminal economy of Pakistan, given the economic meltdown of Pakistan. That's my assessment.
Hardik Thakkar wants to know some big terrorist names being eliminated in Pakistan silently. How do you do it? Any credits to Raw or Desi James Bond? We just answered this
It's not
question.
raw. Yeah, it's not raw. It's a
Ra.
ra. Please pronounce
Ra.
it properly the Pakistani way. Ra.
Abhishek wants to know, sir, why do American Christian rights say that foundation of America lies in Judeo Christianity despite the fact that America believes in freedom of religion?
Well, it does lie in Judeo Christianity because all those ideas were developed in a Judeo Christian framework. Freedom of religion was a slow process. Remember, it was the pilgrim fathers who came, so-called pilgrim fathers who came on the Mayflower, who were actually extremely intolerant people themselves. That even by British standards, they were considered religious lunatics. Came and set up the first 13 colonies and all of that. They were very intolerant to Catholics. They were very intolerant to Jews. I don't think people realize what an uphill task it was for Kennedy to get elected being a Catholic. But he did. It's developed over time. Okay. And they believe, quite rightly so, that it is a Judeo-Christian evolution, because wherever you look at a Judeo-Christian tradition in Europe, it developed to greater and greater tolerance and liberalism, mostly because of industrialization. Okay, because in industrialization, just like the industrial North abolished slavery, the agrarian South did not. Do they confuse the two? Sure, but you can also claim that industrialization was because of the Judeo-Christian mindset. Why did no other part of the world industrialize, and why was the Christian world the only real part of the world to industrialize organically, unlike Japan, which does it after first contact forced in the Meiji era?
Last couple of questions. Next question. Avishant Keshar wants to know, what do you think of toxic masculinity?
It's very good. There is no such thing as toxic masculinity. There is masculinity, there is femininity, there is dimorphism, and there is androgyny. I personally do not believe in things called toxic masculinity. Full stop.
Next question from Dowtail O. If India were to abrogate Indus Water Treaty, can World Bank do anything?
India will not abrogate the Indus Water Treaty. We're looking for a renegotiation of it based on how water patterns, agricultural patterns, and technologies have emerged. We can't actually abrogate the Indus Water Treaty. We can't.
Even if they implement the current version, listen, Abhijit, even if they implement the current version, they'll have excess water that they'll have to figure out a way to send it to somewhere. And the YSL was supposed to be the solution. And Punjab doesn't want to do its part of the thing.
Yeah, exactly right. So, look, you can, but it's there is a reputational risk involved of getting into treaties after that. Okay, that is always a problem. And the big worry always is not that China is a major source of water for us. There are some rivers which are majorly fed from China. At least for Nepal, about 30% or so comes from China. But for India, not so much, maybe about 5 to 10%, which is still quite significant. So you don't want to do to others what can be done to you. Basically, that's the thing.
I think we should stop here because this is the last question.
The
last question. Yeah. Green Cross Export Private Limited, thank you so much. Why Indian Navy can produce indigenous like destroyers, submarines, but not Indian Air Force? What is it that is, why are they behind they are behind Indian Navy in terms of technology? Why are they behind?
Very, very good question. Remember, we are just building the shells. The propulsion is foreign, the weaponry is foreign. Even in the BrahMos missile, which is domestic, the motor is still made in Russia. The algorithms and things like that for the MF Star radar is also foreign. They're not giving us access to it to integrate the BrahMos into it. They've made it very clear that they're not going to do that. Now, the problem with the Air Force is It does a lot of the same thing a destroyer does, but look at how compact it is. That miniaturization is brutal. Okay. The ability to write software. See, in a destroyer, there's no paucity of space. If you run out of software to write, you can add more servers and things like that. You can't do that on a plane. Okay, it's systems integration at a different level. It's micro miniaturization at a different level. You still have to build in quadruple redundancy in these aircraft, which is every function has to be replicated 4 times. So it's very tough. Also, the Navy didn't take the path that we will develop our own radar and this and that. They said, MF star aa raha hai, le lo. Ultimately, that's what the Air Force also did. They say, le lo. Submarines we build, but that's the nuclear submarines. We don't have an indigenous conventional submarine design either. And that foreign design took, the nuclear submarine design took a lot of effort. They still have some minor problems with them, but theek ho jayega. But the Navy has generally been much more realistic than the Air Force. The Air Force tends to go on flights of fancy. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Navy interacts with the outside world a lot more. Because, they keep doing port visits and things like that. Navy is basically your second diplomatic service. Unlike the Army and the Air Force, which seldom get to travel abroad, maybe for one visit, like a red flag exercise or a Malabar or Cope India or whatever it is, a year. But the rest of it, the Navy does it. Almost every boat keeps visiting, and they have a much greater interaction. And it's not optimal knowledge, but it's better than the other two.
Well, that brings us to a close of today's program. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. And from the next week, we're going to try and see if we can get His Highness, the Archbishop of Mylapore, to weigh in on the hot matter of that day, so that you guys can first listen to him, and then we will go into the Q&A section. Thank you so much, Abhijit. Namaskar.
Vel, Vetri Vel.
And Vetri Vel, Veera Vel.